A lot of people don't realize that you can build wealth in real estate. And I'm not talking about being like some real estate mogul who's buying apartments and doing all this stuff. No, I'm talking about you, a normal homeowner. You can build wealth through real estate. And a lot of people say, what are you talking? No, I can't. And you can. And there are two ways to do it. So today we're going to break down those two ways that you can build wealth in real estate. What's up, guys? So today we're talking through the two major ways that you can build wealth in real estate. There are other ways, but we're going to cover these two. But before we get into any of that, I would really appreciate it if you would like the video, if you found it helpful. Helps me in the YouTube algorithm and all this stuff. It's crazy, I know. But it would help me. Or subscribe to the channel, tell your friends about it. Trying to be a resource for people. Again, not trying to be famous, just trying to be a resource to help people understand what's going on and give information. Anyway, let's get into it. Okay, so we're talking about building wealth through real estate. And I'm going to try and put up a lot of the numbers on the screen, different things, so that way you guys can see visuals of what I'm talking about. So that way it's not just, me talking into thin air. And I apologize if I pause at times because there's a lot to unpack here. And I want to make sure that you guys understand what I'm talking about. So there are two major ways that I'm going to talk about today. There are some other ways, but I'm going to try and keep it simplistic. So the two major things that we're looking for. Okay, so we're going to talk about the first and most common way that people build wealth through real estate, and that's through the equity of your home. Now, can you build tons of wealth this way? Maybe not, but you can build a steady amount of wealth over time to actually build wealth through real estate. So the second one I'm going to talk about, I think, is possibly the better way. It depends on everyone's situation, but this is a very solid way to do it, and this is the most common way that most people do this. So we're going to use an example of our first home. So my wife had bought a home before we got married, and she had bought this home for $275,000. Again, I'm going to put some of these numbers up on the screen so that way you can see it. So $275,000, putting 5% down, which comes out to be about $13,750. So what that means is our loan on that house was $261,250. Okay, so we bought it for $275,000, we put money down. Our loan is $261,250. That's what we owe on the house. So I'm not actually going to go through the real numbers because 2021 threw everything for a loop. It did, because it's one of those that, normal equity growth is anywhere from, 2 to 5%. That's a year, that you grow equity. And every year could be different, right? I mean, maybe one year you cut out even, and next year you grow 7% or 5% or something like that. Next year it's 1%. It's going to vary. It's not always going to be the same. But it's one of those that, 2021, it was like 500%, it was nuts. So we're just going to talk through normal numbers. So $275,000 she bought it for, owes $261,250. So let's say 5 years. Most people right now, depending on where you are in life, you move every 5 to 8 years. It used to be 3 to 5, now it's 5 to 8. And people are staying in homes longer probably because of how much homes are costing, different things like that. Interest rates play a part, all that stuff. So let's say, and I'm going to use a steady number. I'm not going to change tons of variables. We're just going to say that you buy the house at $275,000. That house grows in equity 3% every year. Okay, so first year, 3%, second year, 3%, third year, and so on. 3% for 5 years. It grows at 3%. So I'm just going to choose those numbers. It's not how it typically happens, but it's one of those I'm just going to show you so that way you can understand. So you do that for 5 years. That number comes out to be $318,800. So $318,800. So that is a difference. So your house has now grown. So you owed $261,000, right? $261,250. Your house has grown to $318,800. Ugh, can't talk today. The growth in that 5 years was just over $57,000, $57,550. So that's how much equity you grew in 5 years. So what people then do is they say, okay, I need to sell this house so I can go buy a bigger house. We're having kids, or maybe we're having more kids. We need to do this. All right, so they go to sell the house. Obviously, you have commissions and whatnot, so that's going to cut into that $57,000. So let's say you walk away with $40,000 of that equity that you're able to put down on the next home. So instead of putting the 5% down, which was just over $13,000, now you're putting down $40,000. So now you have less of a mortgage on that newer, bigger house, which costs more money, and so on and so forth. And people continue to do that throughout their life. And that's the majority of people. That's the way they do it, because it's, hey, I'm going to let growth happen in my house, build equity, and then over time, when I need to get into one, I'll sell it and go on. Some people, maybe you have less equity growth. You only get 1-2% every year, and so you've only made $25,000. So it's one of those that you can still build that, and that's just not as much. I use 3% every year. Obviously with people in 2021, when your house doubles in value, it's like, yeah, it's a no-brainer. I'm going to sell it. and I get it, because it was right. They could go and get a bigger house for almost the same price of what they're paying now as a monthly payment. So, and that was back when interest rates were low. So that is the most common way that people walk through and they say, all right, I bought this house 5 years from now, 8 years from now, whatever. They run and they say, you know what, I need a bigger house or a change, or I need to move somewhere else. That's how you build equity, and you use equity to continue to buy houses that way. But now let's get into number 2. Okay, so the second way to build wealth in real estate is to use real estate as an investment. It's not just, hey, I'm going to sell it, I'm going to buy, I'm going to sell it, I'm going to buy, I'm going to sell it, I'm going to buy. It's going to be, I'm going to save money for a down payment. So let's say you move in 5 years, right? You bought a house. All right, I'm going to save for the next 5 years for the down payment for my next house. So you do that. You get to that point, 5 years comes. All right, it's time to move. I'm not going to sell that house. I'm going to rent that house out. And now I'm going to go buy my house because I've saved for a 5% down payment. Let's say, the first house was the $275,000 house. That's just over $13,000 in down payment. Okay, that's what you did. Well, then when you go to buy, you've saved for 5 years, you save up $25,000, which is 5%. Let's say you buy a $500,000 house. You're getting a bigger house, and then you're renting that other house out. Now, is that riskier? Is it more work? 100% it is. It is. But it's one of those that it can be more lucrative, because if you think of it this way, like for us, we have that house. It's a long-term rental for us. Why do we do that? Because long-term, over the years, we're going to gain a ton of equity in the house, and eventually we will sell that for our kids' college or our kids' car or whatever it is. And we're going to do that again. Like whenever we move out of this house, we'll probably use this as a rental, and we'll get another house because we're saving up for that down payment. And some people ask, well, couldn't I do like home equity loans and all this stuff for the down payments? That's a totally different subject. We can get into that another point. But for the sake of the argument, you're saving up money for that 5 to 7 years that you're in that house. For us, we're saving money up for our next house. So that way we have the down payment and we can do that, and we'll make this a rental. And that's one way that a lot of people build wealth in real estate. Again, I'm not talking about being a mogul and having 40 houses. There are people that do that, and they build to that. You don't start out that way. You build up to that point. And so there are ways to use real estate to your advantage. It can cause more work. It can be riskier, but it can also be very profitable. And we know, and when you look at, whether it be the stock market or whatever it is, the people who take more risks can technically make more money. Now, it can also go really bad if you do it wrong and all of that different stuff. But that's why you need to be getting advice from someone who knows what they're talking about and who's going to help guide you that way. I would love to have that conversation with you. I would love to help you think about how you can build wealth in real estate, because you can do it. And it may take steps to be able to do that. So I hope you'll reach out to me. My information's in the description below. Guys, you've been listening to The Real.